the COC full council meeting. So the first thing, I guess, the first order of business, hopefully everyone's had a chance.
Alan, Andrea, can you hit record?
Oh,
Thank you.
I will. It just takes me a minute to figure out how to do that on my phone. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Recording in progress.
There we go.
Thanks, Rika. Thanks,
it's a team
Andrew.
effort.
Yeah, exactly. So the first order of business is hopefully everyone's had a chance to review the minutes that were sent out from the last meeting. Could I have a motion to accept those minutes, please?
So moved.
Thanks, William. Could I have a second, please?
I second it.
Okay. Andrea, did you get the second?
I did. Yep.
Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is the annual training for child abuse and adult protective services. And so, Andrea, who's the representative for this?
Sharika made arrangements with them.
Yes, I believe it's Amy. Is it Amy? Let me look at the name. I'm sorry.
I'm here, Mandy Jackson, for Adult Protective Services. No, that's okay. I don't know who's doing child protective.
I'm Amy Hard, and I'm with Child Protective.
There you go.
It is Amy. Okay.
Hey, Amy.
You're right.
So, and Mandy and Amy, whichever one of you want to kick off, just giving us information about, I believe Amy, you did it last year. So, you know, just kick us off about, of course, us all being mandated reporters, what to report, how to report, and I'll just let you take it from there.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to share some information with you guys this morning. We appreciate it as an agency. So essentially, for CPS, a mandated reporter in the state of North Carolina is everybody. North Carolina General Statute 7B -301 says any person or institution who has cause to suspect that a juvenile is abused, neglected, or dependent, as defined by 7B-101, is required to report. And you make those reports to the Department of Social Services. We operate from the object perspective of where the child resides. So you would report to that county. However, please know that you can call any county if you're unsure about where a family resides. Call the county that you believe to be where they reside, and that county can certainly forward it to the appropriate county should they determine that the family is not residents, and get that taken care of. We just like to say that to be clear, because that's a little different than law enforcement. Law enforcement operates from where the incident occurred. And then, as with most things, there are lots of rules and caveats to determine residency, but our intake staff does a really good job of determining residency. So if you call us, our number is 336-703-2287. And we have people answering the phone during business hours right away. If for any reason they don't answer, if you would please just leave a message, we'll be happy to give you a call back. After hours, if you call that number, you can leave a message and someone will get back with you in a timely manner. And please know that we don't expect you to have every single detail of a family. Please call us if you have concerns and provide the information you have. Our intake department has the ability to do searches and find families, get additional information, and then our social workers will gather additional information when they go out. So there are a lot of questions. It's a multi-page form, but please don't feel like you have to have all the answers when you call. We would much rather people call, make that report, and feel like they've done all they can, and then let us take it from there in terms of additional information and following up with that family. Don't let a lack of information create a barrier for you making a report. And once we receive that report, the intake department just makes a decision about whether or not that's something that we would have involvement with. But the mandated reporter piece, it's anybody in this state who has concerns is mandated to report. And yes, it can be considered a misdemeanor as a failure to report those to us. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them for you. All righty, thanks so much, guys.
Right, this is Andrea. I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
I know some of us on the call are attorneys and have special duties when we have clients of confidentiality.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about what the mandatory duty to report as an attorney is, and how that may be different?
I, quite frankly, have never heard any delineation between just any citizen and an attorney. I certainly appreciate your confidentiality. It may be that you would just call and give the information that you feel comfortable providing, and then certainly we could send a request for any additional information if we felt like you had additional information that we needed. And we could provide you the general statute indicating that we are entitled to information during the course of an investigation, so you could have that for your records.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Amy, can you speak a little bit about follow-up? I mean, what are you all allowed to follow up with the person who's reporting the information, or no?
Sure, of course, be happy to. When you call and make a report, you will be asked if you would like to provide your name and contact information. And certainly, in order for us to follow up, you have to make that selection. And while that sounds pretty basic, we do get people who make anonymous reports and then get upset with us because we didn't follow up with them. So just throwing that caveat out there. If you are the reporter, the social worker, if a social worker is assigned to a case, that social worker would follow up with you and ask if you had any additional information you would like to provide. Most people, when they make the report, they provide everything that they have at that point, but there's always the opportunity to have ongoing contact with a family in a professional setting, or even in a personal setting, a family member and such, that you would have additional information. So when that social worker contacts you, you could provide that additional information. And additionally, if you provide your contact information in the form of an address and you ask to have a closing letter sent to you, meaning you would be notified of the outcome, you would receive a letter in the mail indicating what that final case decision was when the case is closed. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Amy?
Yeah, I do. So if you see someone out in public that you do not know abusing their child, what is your first course of action? Because you absolutely have no information about them.
Depending on what that action is, if it's serious, we get reports about children locked in a car and it's hot outside or something of that nature. My suggestion would be to contact law enforcement, because they are going to have that immediate response. If you feel like a child is at imminent risk of harm, then you would call law enforcement right away. And it's likely that once law enforcement responds, if they are in a car, they run the tag number. Once they arrive and start asking questions, then there would be more information. And you could certainly call with that information, or law enforcement would typically call us and make us aware of a situation. If you're just out in public and you see something, I don't know that we would have a quick enough response time to really get there before the action were completed. So law enforcement may be your best bet in that situation.
Thank you.
Of course.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great day.
You too. So Mandy, I guess, are you going to do the overview of the DSS programs?
Yes, for adult protective services. And we do have some others here that I can briefly discuss. The main thing with protective services for adults is mandated reporters, the same as with children. Anybody is a mandated reporter. You see something going on, it's good to let that be known by somebody. The main differences with adults and children are, children fall into a really easy category under 18. Adults are, yes, over 18, but to meet the definitions and the criteria for adult protective services, which is under the General Statutes 108A, the adult has to be incapacitated by some type of disability. They have to have something going on that requires them to need additional care, additional help, or something's going on that is affecting their day-to-day well-being. So sometimes people aren't quite sure if something meets that. It's always good to just call and we can talk. The other thing is we don't investigate incidences that have occurred. We look at what is the ongoing situation, what is the ongoing need. If somebody's in this situation and it needs to be changed, how can we help them change that? So we have 3 criteria for a case to be screened in. One is the incapacitated disability, 2 is the allegation of maltreatment, and 3, protection is needed on an ongoing basis. So if an individual is at home, they've been self-neglecting, unable to take care of themselves, well, now they're in the hospital and they're deciding they want to go into placement, that's not going to be an issue for us because there's not going to be an ongoing need. They've decided to go into placement. That's exactly what needs to happen. If, let's say, it's an individual in a group home, they've been assaulted by a group home staff, the staff member has been fired, that is not an issue for us because the staff member has been fired. There's no longer an ongoing need of protection. That is a police issue, and they can prosecute and go after the staff member for assault. So there's a lot of differences with adult protective services. The main thing is the ongoing protection. And the final thing of it is, even if we go out there and we substantiate and we say this is a bad situation, you're sitting here in your own feces, or you're in this house that is hoarded, packed from the floor to the ceiling. If the adult has capacity to make decisions, they can choose to stay there. They can choose to stay in that situation, and there's nothing that we can do about it. It's just as frustrating for us sometimes to be able to say, hey, look, we can provide you these services. And the adults say, no, you know what? I'm content with my situation. I'm fine. A lot of what we see is self-neglect. They don't qualify for Medicaid. Medicare doesn't pay for in-home services. They don't have the personal financial means to pay for private care. So they would rather be at home with little to no help versus going into a facility at that point in time. So it gets very frustrating, but ultimately it's the adult's rights, self-determination. Now, if we feel they lack that capacity, dementia's kicking in or other things are going on, and there's no power of attorney, we would at that point in time petition the court for adjudication of incompetence and to have a guardian assigned. And then we can work with the guardian to make those protection plans. We don't we can respond immediately, but we don't have any emergent housing. We don't have any emergent services. We don't have anything that we can run out there and put into place for protection of adults, because we have to do our assessment and then determine, does the adult have capacity, and then what do they want? Whereas children, they're under 18. There's, certain laws that says they need to be fed, they need to be housed, they need to be this, and those social workers are able to go in and make safety plans and other things. It's a little bit different with adult protective services. Anytime you have any questions, we're always welcome to talk with you on the phone about the situation, and maybe even look at some possible resources. If you're willing to help somebody and you just need some resources, just give us a call. We'll brainstorm and see what we can do to help you guys. The Adult Protective Services hotline is, their phone number, 336-703-3503. And we have a social worker that mans that line. And if they are on the other line taking a report, please leave a message and they'll get back to you promptly. We just have one worker answering phones, so it could be a quiet all day, and then at the same time 4 calls come in. So just leave a message and we will get back to you. To kind of follow up on what was asked of Amy, if the reporter leaves their information, we can follow back up with them, but it's very limited, as in, yes, we found a need, and yes, the adult is allowing us to help them, or yes, we found need, the adult is not allowing us to help them, or no, we did not find any needs. So it's a very brief thing what we can share back with the individual that reported. There are some other services that we have here in the adult division. A lot of people call protective services because somebody needs to be in a nursing home. If they're willing and able to go into a nursing home, their family's willing to help them into a nursing home, we actually have a unit that helps with placement, and they can go ahead and start that process. It doesn't have to go through Adult Protective Services. We additionally have in-home services where they can provide light housekeeping and stuff. There has been a very large wait list for that, but it doesn't prevent somebody from being put on the wait list. But to access the placement unit or any of the other adult services programs, you can dial 336-703-3501. And again, there's one person answering those lines. So if you get the voicemail, leave a message and they will get back to you. But when you're working with the placement unit, the person needs to be willing and able to go into placement. It can't just be, hey, I want to put my mom into a nursing home. I feel like she needs it. If she has the ability to make decisions still, she has to be willing to go in there. That's a huge piece with adults, is their ability to make decisions and what they want for their life. So, any questions?
Mandy, can you repeat the number for the phone number for the housekeeping or the placement unit? It's 703-3500.
3501.
And then the hotline number.
It's 3503.
(703-3503).
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andrea, Sam is trying to talk. He's on the call 336-748-1962, and he's muted.
Okay, I will see what I can do. Hold on. It allows me to ask to unmute him, but it doesn't. Sam, if you can hear me, try hitting on your phone keyboard *6. It's barring Sam being able to do *6 on his phone, I don't seem to have the power to unmute him.
He's gonna come in my office and just use my
Okay.
office.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
Sam, sorry about that.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. Child Protective Services. What is the age? Because is it for 19 and under? And
18.
18.
Mhm.
And another thing is about children, the Adult Protective Services. Say somebody is in Adult Protective Services, I've heard a lot of nightmare stories about Adult Protective Services. Does the person who is who is under the care of somebody else, do they have any rights? Do they have any personal self-determinative rights of their own?
Are you talking about more towards somebody who's been deemed incompetent and they are considered a ward?
Kind of, yes.
Okay. Because like with protective services, we're just doing an assessment. We don't have any authority over anybody. We can't force anybody to do anything. It's all about their own rights. So we can only help people who want to be helped, and we can only help them with what they want to be helped with. If we feel like they have a substance abuse issue, but they don't want substance abuse treatment, we can't force them into it. So that's Adult Protective Services. Now, when somebody's been deemed incompetent by a court of law and they've been assigned a ward, basically their rights have been taken away. Now, there's a huge...
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there's a huge, I would like to say spectrum in some people's abilities, and it depends on who their guardian is. You know, there's a lot of younger people who have mental health issues, who have been, for some reason or another, declared incompetent. Some of them are living in their own apartments. They're working, they're managing. They just have the guardian kind of overseeing things. You have people with more severe disabilities that they can't function, and the guardian is more upfront, involved in everything and controlling everything. So the situations vary vastly, depending on who the guardian is. A lot of people will get that and they feel they have all the power in the world to make this person do whatever they want to do. It's not really supposed to work like that. As far as DSS goes, like for adults, I haven't, you know, most of our wards are those with dementia, no other families. You know, they're just really not safe at home. We do have some mental health issues, you know, and we have some wards out there that are homeless, despite, you know, us providing an apartment for them or whatever, you know, their funds can afford. You know, some people don't want to go live in that apartment. Some people, you know, they want to live on the street. They like that lifestyle. And even as their guardian, we can't force them. Otherwise, we can say, well, here's a safe place for you to sleep if you choose to. But we can't force them in there on a day-to-day basis to go to bed and use the apartment. So, you know, after a while of the apartment not getting used, they might say, well, this is just a waste of their money. They want to live on the street. We'll let them live on the street. They can contact us if they have any needs. And they know who their guardian is. They just, you know, continue with the lifestyle that they wish to have. And if any serious decisions need to be made, it comes back to the guardian. So our social workers and stuff, they really tried to work with the individual's family and what the individual would have wanted. It only really becomes a forced type situation is if most of the time, let's say you have that dementia person and they're out wandering or, doing things, they're not safe out in the community. And then they end up having to go to a memory care unit or something with a locked door facility. So hope I answers your question. If there's any specific horror stories.
Well, we're in November, and this is the time when people want to be with their families and friends for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for New Year's. And I was just wondering, supposing someone lives out of state, and it doesn't have to be like on the other side of the country. It could be like in Tennessee or in Virginia, and they want to be with their family in one of those states. I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, but is any leeway given to the person who is the ward of that person saying, okay, yes, we will allow you to visit with your family, but under a supervised situation?
Our social workers do that.
I've heard a lot of nightmares about adult protective services. I just wanted to know how much of it is true and how much of it is just urban legend. Thank you.
I would like to hope it's urban legend because we're we can't force people to do anything. Most of the time they either want our services or they don't. When they don't want our services, we say good luck to you. We're not able to force anything on them for there to be any major horror stories. Unlike with child protective, that's where we always hear most of the horror stories. Usually people who have been involved with both are so happy when they're done, first of all, but they're just like, this was so much better than, what we've always dealt with child protective, because they go in, they've got to have their safety plans. They got to have this, you have to have this, we'll just step over your trash. We're not going to tell you to clean it up. We can't, that's your house. I can't come into your house and tell you how to live. If it's only you in there, it's different with children. So I'm not sure what the bases are or where, maybe in another county. I've been here at Forsyth for 20 some years, and, our guardianship individuals have been phenomenal to what I've seen and witnessed, and how they try to, definitely family's important. We try to get family involved. If they're not able to serve, then they're definitely involved.
So Mandy, I have a question. So we have an assessment team that meets a couple of times a month. And we assess all of our homeless families. And it seems that, we are continuing to get or see older individuals. And just with some of the cases, there's many times where we feel like, can this person really take care of themselves on their own? It's almost like it's borderline, like, we a lot of times, and I'm just talking on behalf of the team, that we're afraid for these people to, be in an apartment by themselves. And them not be successful. I mean, we are concerned about their safety, of course. So what your recommendation is, Mandy, is that we call the hotline or call the placement unit to talk to one of the social workers. Would that always be the best thing to do? I mean, is that too much?
You can. Now, the homeless population actually brings a whole bunch of other different dynamics to it. Because a lot of times the folks we're working with, they don't have
family members, they don't have a guardian, and like we're it, and we don't have anybody to, and we're basing on what we see every day.
Right.
And
if they don't
really
have
need-
any income, nobody's going to touch them,
Mhm.
period. They're not going to get an apartment. They're not going to get in a facility if they want it. We have had many homeless individuals, and some of them really like that lifestyle until it gets cold, and then they want something else. But then they're ready to be back out there with that freedom. And we've helped some get off the street and get into a place because they wanted it. They realized, they just couldn't be on the street anymore. Some
When
of
you
them,
say, Mindy, when you say we've helped them, what are you saying? What does that mean?
like help them into a facility or some other type of
Okay.
situation. The main thing with the homeless population, we've got to be able to find them. Can't just drive up and down the street, hollering out for people. If they have a place that they hang out all the time, or, they can be seen every Thursday at the library or something like that. We can work with them. I have one that just disappeared, I was trying to help him into placement. He was supposed to check in with me every so often, because I can't work with him if I can't find him. And it's been 4 weeks now, and he's just disappeared. So,
Well, Mandy, probably talk to us. Or outreach.
Yeah, he's very familiar with a lot of agencies and stuff,
Okay.
and he's just kind of gone off the radar. So when he shows back up on the radar, whether it be with the hospital, MIH, or everybody else that he's familiar with, they'll be calling us again. But sometimes they this is not the case with everybody, but sometimes they want to make that change, but they might have an addiction or something that they're really not ready to fully give up. So every one of those situations is completely different. Hard population.
Would you be open, Mandy, to if we had more than 5, say 70-year-olds, would you be open to talking with or somebody from your team, kind of talking about each case to determine if these people are eligible for your services or not? I'm just trying to find the best way.
Let me just give you I'll give you my direct phone number that you can call me if you want to set something like that up.
Okay.
I can also give you my email. I'm the outreach person for our unit and our adult protective services. My direct number is 336-703-3787. I come to meetings or whatever and talk a little bit more in depth. I know this was supposed to be a mandated reporter type thing. So yeah, I can definitely do it in-depth stuff. And my email, if that works better, is JACK, S as in Sam, OAL as in Lake, at forsyth.cc.
Thank you, Mandy. Sorry
You're
about
welcome.
that, everyone.
Anyone else have any questions for Mandy? Well, thank you very much, Mandy. We should really appreciate it.
No problem. I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you.
You too. And so, Andrea, I think you said we had somebody for City Housing Justice Act.
Yes, that's Adolfo.
Adolfo. So, Adolfo, are you ready to?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I prepared a presentation. I'll try to share that with you guys.
I will try and give you the power to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Here, I'm just gonna make you a co-host and then you should have the power to share your screen.
Oh, I cannot. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Can you share it now?
Okay. I'll try. I was trying to do that, and this technological things is always. How do I share it? Do you guys know?
Do you see a little
Hover,
green?
hover at the bottom and a green arrow will pop up that says share screen.
Can you guys see it?
No.
I'm very sorry. All right, well, you guys can't see the presentation, but it's about the Housing Justice Act. So what is the Housing Justice Act? In general, the Housing Justice Act, it's a new ordinance that was passed on June 21st, 2022. And it's a city ordinance. And because of this ordinance now, denying housing based solely on criminal history or sources of income will be considered discriminatory under this act. The important thing about this is that this only applies to individuals, organizations that receive city funding to build, construct, develop this type of a house. And I'm very sorry, how do I share this? I don't know. Somebody's always here with me, always saying,
Alva, do you want to send it to me? And then maybe Andrea can give me the power.
And I'm sorry, send it to whom?
Sharika.
Sharika, of course. Yes, I'll try to do that. Yes, I'll try to do that right away. Thank you, Sharika. And while we do that, so I'm going to okay. I sent it already, Sharika. Thank you. So anyway, so while that happens, so please just remember that. So there are certain so this applies only to, so this is not a general type of ordinance, right? It only applies to all those individuals or organizations that receive city funding. It is important that you understand that. So there are some prohibitions or some exceptions when it comes to criminal history. So not everything is considered, right? So things like felony assault, any illegal use of weapons, or a lengthy criminal history can be used to deny housing to individuals, even if they have received city funding. In general, if whatever criminal action that is in the record of the individual, if it's 5 years old or more, it should be in general be waived or not included in the decision to provide housing to this individual. Now, this prohibition will also last only 10 years. It is important that you guys consider that and remember that. So this is not forever. So if you receive city funding today, your obligation to this act lasts 10 years. After those 10 years, you're not covered by the act, even if you have received city fundings in the past. Now, when it comes to sources of income, they include anything that is paid directly to the tenant or to the landlord. And some examples of protected income include supplemental security income, social security, pension, and other retirement benefits, alimony, child support, federal housing choice vouchers, among others. Now, there is a component of housing affordability in this Housing Justice Act. So this is at least 33% of the project should be designated for affordable housing. And this includes, of course, single family homes or multifamily complexes. And they should assign in the following manner: 10% of the units shall be made available for households with income of no more than 30% of the area median income. 20% should be set aside for households whose incomes are between 31 to 50% of the area median income, and 70% of the units should be set aside for incomes between 51 to 80% of the area median income. The remaining 67% of the units may be set aside for mixed income housing or a different combination of workforce housing and market rate housing for 15 years for single family housing and 30 years for multifamily housing. Now, the act also is very specific in saying that the individual or the organizations that receive city funds should pay all the applicable taxes in a timely manner and is responsible for all the costs associated with the project. Also, each housing unit will be subject to an annual inspection and affordability review, which may occur more frequently if there are code or program violations. And in cases where an individual feels like he or she was denied housing based on either criminal history or source of income, he or she can file a complaint with our Department of Human Relations, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department. Two things to consider is that the Community Development Department, even though we, the Human Relations Department, is responsible to enforce this Housing Justice Act, the Community Development Department of the City of Winston-Salem will have to provide confirmation that the project in question received city funds. And another interesting thing about this this Housing Justice Act is that there are no fines or penalties included in the ordinance, which means that probably it will have to be. Oh, can you guys see the presentation now?
Yes, we can see it.
Great, fantastic. I didn't know it was here. Ms. Floyd, can you control the? Oh, there you go. There you go. There are no fines or penalties included in the ordinance, and that's very interesting because that means that probably these how much fines or penalties this person will, an individual or organization or a company, that is found guilty of not complying with this ordinance, probably in court, or the court will have to decide how we're going to go about applying these fines or the penalties. And that was the presentation. I hope it was useful. I want to add one more thing that is not in the presentation. Please remember that since January of this year, we also can investigate discrimination complaints based on employment and public accommodations. And of course, this Housing Justice Act was added to the list of things that we have power of when it comes to enforcing this act. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Adolfo, have you guys updated your booklet that you share with the public with all of your services? Have you updated to include the Housing Justice Act yet?
I'm pretty sure it has been, but I don't know. I'm not constantly, but it's a good question. Thank you, Ms. Floyd. I'm going to check the website, and I'm pretty sure there have some brochures printed already. And if they have, I'll try to share some with you if that's okay.
Oh, that'll be great. This is Pamela Ingram from ESR.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. So we can connect. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ingram.
Good morning. I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Dan Rose from Winston-Salem State and Housing Justice Now.
Dr. Rose,
I believe. Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
I believe that the number of properties that fall within this city supported within the last 10 years is under 2,000, but it's been very difficult to get that information. This is no shade to the Community Development Office, but I believe that this information needs to be more accessible as to where these properties are, how many units, and when they receive city funding so that we know if they're still in the 10-year window. Ms. Parker at the office there in the city had a very difficult time, I think, locating all of this information. I got half the list at one point, and then there were other properties that were found to be city funded. So as far as I know, that's less than 5%, maybe closer to 2% of the rental properties in this town that are actually covered by the so-called Housing Justice Act. And as you stated, Mr. Briseño, that there's no real penalty specified for landlords who violate it. It's very difficult to prove. A landlord does not have to tell you as a tenant why they are rejecting your application for housing, whether it be source of income, criminal history, or some other protected category. So I guess my two questions are, number one, can we please get a list of city-funded properties and the times in which they were funded published in a publicly accessible part of the website? And number two, has the Human Relations Department in the 5 months since this act has been on the books, have we investigated anyone for discrimination on these new protected categories? And if so, what was the outcome of those investigations?
Yes. So the first question, Dr. Rose, is I will ask for that list. And if I have it, I'll share it with you. And of course, I will also say, this list has to be made public. It has to be somewhere in our website. I will try to do that. That's the first thing. Now, remember also that the act was passed on June 21st, 2022. So remember, it cannot be made retroactive. So if you have received city funds before that date, you're not covered by the act. It's what happens after June 21st. That's when the act starts, comes with its powers, right? So it's important to know that.
Wow.
So starting from June 21st, those properties, those landlords, developers, whatever, that receive city funding starting from January 21st, that's when they're covered by the act. So it's important to understand that. So the second question is, no, we haven't received any complaints yet regarding this act. So we have zero for the time being. But of course, it is our job, and we are trying to promote this so people are aware. And of course, organizations like your Dr. Rose and everybody present here, that's how we start to getting start to get the word out that these new powers exist and that it is possible and it's not possible. It is going to be illegal for landlords that fall under the conditions that this act establishes to deny housing based on source of income and criminal history, with some exceptions, as we have said. I agree that it is hard, that the standard of the industry, hard in the sense that a landlord, the standard of the industry is that they don't have to share why they are being asked out. When we investigate, they have to tell us. And of course, if they go to court, I'm pretty sure they have to explain that to the judge. But I do agree that it is the industry's norm not to tell the tenant why they're being asked to vacate. We have to inquire into that whenever there is a complaint. So I hope I answer your questions, Dr. Rose.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for being frank about all of the different nuances of this. And I certainly think that with Mayor Joines's stated commitment of 750 affordable units per year, hopefully the list will start to grow and we will be able to publicly identify and support potential tenants who are, and get good documentation where possible so that you all can do your jobs to the best of your ability and conduct robust investigations. So I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully in the future, we can enforce this.
Yes, of course. Yes, and it will be our responsibility and our commitment to do so, Dr. Rose.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Samuel Gavin from the Homeless Caucus. I have a question. Is there a way to do background checks on landlords? Now, it is well known that landlords do background checks on tenants, but is there a way to do background for a potential tenant to do a background check on a landlord to see what kind of, if any, legal matters have been placed against him or her?
That's an interesting idea. I am not aware of one single database that will contain that information. That probably is dispersed among several city departments. But no, I am not aware that that can be obtained easily. That you can say, First Street apartments, how many complaints they have had in the past, right? How many, not only fair housing complaints, but also noise complaints, how many, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to search for. I don't believe there is an easy way to do that. Tenants in general have to rely on what they can find from former residents, from friends and family. Sometimes they find some things on the web. Sometimes, but there is no, to my knowledge, there is no centralized place that you can go and just put an address and see what has happened there in the past or before. Remember also that these properties constantly change hands, so that it makes it also challenging. Sometimes problems can arise by the way these properties are managed by a specific landlord or a specific managing company. Managing companies and landlords bring their own twist and their own understanding of how this business should be run, and that can make it challenging. I mean, and sometimes completely change. I sometimes talk to tenants, and they say day and night. When these guys were in charge of the complex, the litany of problems was this, and now with new management or new owner, no problems. I mean, or we don't have the problems that we used to have with the garbage, with pesky tenants, with anyway. I mean, so that is part of the problem. That will be part of the problem, in my view, or challenge to have this database, because they change. I have had properties. I have heard of properties that change hands three times in a year. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's sometimes tenants really have to deal with, if they have been living there, I don't know, 6 years, 5 years. Sometimes it is one different company every year. I mean, it's incredible how quickly these properties changes hands. But no, there's no centralized way to do this that I am aware of.
Well, one of my issues of contention are these predatory landlords who take 100% of every paycheck that somebody earns. And another issue of contention is, and I have a friend who he and I attend Calvary Moravian Church together. The landlord has been doing nothing. His property has been taken over by street gangs, by prostitution, gun dealers, you name it. And the property management is not only not doing anything, there's a good possibility that they may be involved and complicit with the criminal activity. So what protections are in place for someone who has a predatory landlord or whose landlord is engaged in criminal activity and is negligent in protecting the tenants. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This is. I think this requires a systemic approach. I'm going to give you an example. A few months, that was 2 or 3 years ago, somebody suggested this. Why don't you guys, the city, take over the property? If it's disastrous, like you're saying, gang, prostitution, and nothing gets done, right? And so you guys take over the property, fire the manager, get in new management, and leave this when it's going smoothly. When it's again, then you sell it for a profit. And I'm like, where do you get this idea? And he said, well, that's what can happen with banks. The federal authority can come in a bank and fire management. The owners of the bank, the stockholders lose all their money. The authority takes over. They turn around the bank. They clean their finances, and when it's running smoothly already, they sell it. Why don't you guys do that? And I'm like, well, sir, that is a very interesting idea, but for the time being, it's an idea. So there is those type of I think those type of properties deserve a systemic approach to this, because for the time being, there's nothing that it can happen. Allegedly, the way it has been explained to me, your only recourse is get out of there. Vote with your wallet. You don't have to be there, right? That is the answer or the expectation from the system that's going to happen. I mean, what are you living? You don't have to. You don't have to get out. So that is the problem. I think the approach is the problem. That when there's a problem, why are you putting up with it? And you need to go. So it requires a systemic approach about this. And I hope I am answering your question, which I'm not, because in reality there's little that can be done. Somebody has asked me, and I see your hand raised, Dr. Rose, but somebody has asked me something. Why don't you guys fire the manager? The manager isn't doing anything, and the manager has absolutely no customer service skills. And we try to explain them, sir, we can't do that. I mean, this is a private business, a private company. We cannot interfere or have absolutely no intervention whatsoever when it comes to deciding who the manager is in these properties. Hey, but probably if there was a law that would force us to do that, they will be different. For the time being, there's nothing really that the city can do in that sense. Dr. Rose, I see your hand up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I will agree that it's very, very difficult. There's no one place where you can go to find out information about a landlord. And, there is one thing I think that I think tenants can do in these situations besides voting with their wallet is you can sue your landlord. If you receive EBT or SNAP, as it's called sometimes, or TANF, which almost nobody gets anymore, or SSI, or if you just testify to the court that you are a low-income person and fill out an affidavit of indigency, you can sue your landlord for breach of habitability, different types of repairs that haven't been made, rent abatement, even types of abuse and harassment. And I will say that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not telling anyone specifically to sue their landlord. I'm just saying that it is possible. And a judge can decide. And I also wanted to share, Samuel, that like Adolfo said, there's no one place where you can do a background check on a landlord. However, if you contact the city's new code enforcement director, Brian Cheney, he would have to tell you any code enforcement violations on the history of a certain address and give you the full reports of those inspections and what was found, and if any repair orders were issued or declarations that it was unfit for human habitation. There's also the county's tax parcel website. So as Adolfo said, these properties change hands frequently. Sometimes we don't even know who the owner of this property is, and we're dealing with the so-called rent man who is not necessarily the owner of the property. But if you go on the county's tax parcel website, you can look up landlords by name. You can look up properties by address and see who owns it, see when they started owning it. You can see the deed transfers when it was sold last, and even all the way back to 1849 when it was the county was established. You can also look at the Secretary of State for North Carolina. Their website gives you some information on the LLCs. I personally find it very difficult to find out who is running some of these LLCs. And sometimes people say you need a dirt lawyer who can dig in on some of the hidden ownership of these properties. You can contact the Human Relations Department here to find out if there's been any fair housing complaints issued against this landlord, or if they're not in Winston, if they're out county, somewhere in like, say Walkertown, I think you can contact Raleigh. They enforce fair housing for those parts of the community and find out if there's been any fair housing complaints against the landlord there. You can also, last thing I'll say is you can call the clerk of courts, the civil division for housing. It's 779-6303. And you can ask them, has John Smith or whoever the landlord is, have they been the plaintiff on any evictions, or what they call summary ejectments? But if you say evictions, they'll know what you mean. And you can find out if they've sued any tenants for eviction in the Forsyth County courts. Now, that doesn't mean they haven't done any illegal evictions where the courts wouldn't even know about it, but they may have thrown somebody out, turned off their water, turned off their heat, pressured them to leave. But at least as far as the courts know, you can find out whether or not the landlord has evicted. But I agree with you both that it would be fantastic if we could find out information about them the same way that they can find out information about us so easily.
It is a good idea, at least to start with, at least because currently there's no way to that it can happen. You guys are correct in that there's no centralized way to do that. You have to go to various different places to try to find information about a specific landlord.
Okay, does anyone else have any more questions for Adolfo? Okay, well, thank you very much. That was very interesting and some great information. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Rose, I'll try to get you that list as soon as I can get my hands on that, because I really don't have it. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Ms. Floyd.
Thank you, Adolfo.
Thank you, Adolfo. And thank you, Dr. Dan Rose. A lot of the information you provided is very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Dr. Rose.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so does anyone else have any other business updates or announcements?
I'll just add one thing for anyone that has funding contracts with the City for Homeless Services. The contract standards have been updated, so I'll be reaching out to the majority of you this week so that we can review the updated contracts and performance measures that are now required.
Okay, thank you, Sharika. Anyone else?
Just one other thing. Just so everyone knows, we have the CRC has an executive committee that meets once a month, the second Wednesday of the month, to set agendas for the operating cabinet, the commission, and also this meeting. So if there are trainings or topics of discussion that you would like on the agenda, please just let me or Sharika or Alan know, and we'll make sure it gets on the agenda.
Thank you, Andrea. Anyone else?
I have two small questions for whomever might be able to answer this. Number one, I have heard through the grapevine that the street outreach team had the rug pulled out from underneath them by our new hospital overlords, Atrium, that they were no longer being funded to do the essential critical work that they do. And I would just like an update on the status of that team. And my second question is, just a more general question, is how do we find out data about the number of people coming into COC services and then leaving out from COC services, hopefully with the placement in permanent housing?
I'll answer about Empowerment Team. Empowerment Team is actually going to come to Samaritan Ministries. We're going to take over funding of that program. We've also applied for some additional funding through the COC. That funding was ended at Baptist because partners decided not to fund that program.
Thank you, Jan. So yes, Jan has decided to take over the Empowerment Project, which we are very thankful for. We still do have continued outreach through Citywood Dwellings and the Bethesda Center, as well as United Way has John Mack, who goes out. But Jan will be taking on one of the huge projects, the Empowerment Project. With the data, we do have our HMIS lead administrator, Laura Lama, who can provide that information. We are working on revamping a website. We started in about June, I want to say July, redoing the COC website to make all of this information more transparent, more available quarterly. We're looking at updating probably quarterly right now, but just to have that information available without having to request it. So we are preparing a website and getting that together so that all of that information about how many people we are serving, how many people has exited to permanent housing, how many people remain in permanent housing, information about resources, funding, all of that is available in one place for the community as well as our partners. So we're hoping to have that ready by the end of November, but that's where we are on getting that data. If you email me what you need, I can have Laura send that out to you, but we are working on putting that on a website so it can be, it's not something you have to actually look for or request.
Thank you so much, Ms. Floyd and Ms. Lama. And as well, thank you to Jan for picking up where Atrium really left us in the lurch.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rose and Jan and Sharika. Does anybody have anything else? Okay, well, our next full council meeting is going to be January 10th. So I look forward to seeing everyone then. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
everyone. Take care.